When we get back to our districts next week, no one will ask us, well, what about the cartoon video? What happened with that? The media cares, as we can see here today. My colleagues across the aisle care because they have an opportunity again here. But when our hardworking constituents, what they care about is the disastrous policies enacted by this administration and the majority. The disastrous policies, none of which are working. We cannot point to one thing in the country that's going well under these disastrous policies: the border invasion, the rising gas prices, the out-of-control inflation, the reckless spending of our children's future. There's not the failure in Afghanistan, our failure with our standing around the world. There's not one issue. Rising crime, nothing they can point to. So instead, we point to a distraction here today to pretend that this matters to the American people. We've got this faux outrage, as others who have said, because a Rasmussen poll said just this week that on the generic ballot, Republicans are up by 13%, but the tone-deaf majority is trying to ram through as much of their partisan agenda as they can. But what they're going to find out is America spoke 2 weeks ago in the election, and there are many of their constituents, and now former Democrats, who spoke 2 weeks ago as well, and they're saying, what in the world are we doing here on the House floor today? We're stalling before we try to pass a radical, build back bankrupt Bernie and AOC's budget bill. And here we are today trying to punish a member, another ounce of flesh, trying to silence Republican voices on committees. And I urge all of my colleagues to vote against this sham bill and resolution. And I yield back.
The only thing President Biden, Speaker Pelosi, and the Democrats in Congress will be building back better is China's economy. Truly, they are building Beijing back better. A new report released today shows that China has officially surpassed the U.S. as the richest nation in the world because Congress gave China most favored nation status under the Clinton administration. They've definitely tipped the scales for Chinese manufacturing. D.C. politicians themselves have been enriched off of China while the American middle class suffers. Now, Democrats are pushing the Green New Deal policies that will make the middle class suffer even more with higher gas prices and home heating bills this winter. Biden's policies enrich China because they manufacture solar panels, lithium batteries, and windmills, and taxpayers are going to be forced to subsidize this. China mines these minerals for batteries and solar panels with child labor and slave labor. When asked about the slave labor behind the Green New Deal, John Kerry said it was, quote, "not my lane." That's despicable. Thank you, and I yield back.
For yielding. My colleague just referenced the phrase "any other environment," that there would be some consequences. Well, this is not any other environment. This is the House of Representatives. We have constituents who elect us, send us to Washington to represent them, engage in debate, engage in often heated discussions with each other. This is not the same. One of the fundamental problems we have as a chamber right now is that it's being treated that way. It's being treated that way by the majority, shutting down our ability to engage in actual debate, shutting down our ability to move about the chamber, wearing these masks. Talking about right now with CMS and what's happening, as early as December 5th, doctors in San Antonio, Texas, which I represent, being unable to perform their task as doctors, potentially resulting in loss of life and being able to carry out their livelihoods through vaccine mandates. We've got untold harm occurring in South Texas with bodies and body trailers. We've got people dying. We've got actual consequences from these vaccine mandates causing people to lose their jobs, whether it's OSHA-related, private sector jobs, military, defense, border patrol. All of this happening as we head towards December 3rd with a potential government shutdown. And this is what we're having an actual debate on the floor of the House for. I have not seen this chamber look like this since I've been in Congress, where we're debating an issue and we've got 100 members on the floor. We're down here usually giving speeches to an empty chamber. Now look, let me be clear. I would not have posted that video. I would have told my staff I don't want to do that if I knew what was in it. Okay? But the video that was posted was an effort to make a point. And we're now getting into the business of chilling debate and discussion about censoring our members and going down the road of pulling each other off of committees. Where's this going to end? When Republicans are back in the majority, where's that going to end? When my colleague, Ms. Ocasio-Cortez, in January called my former boss and my good friend Ted Cruz an attempted murderer, and I sent a letter to the leader saying, not asking for her to be stripped of committees, but just to apologize, it was met with utter silence. I called then and I call now for us to drop that down and actually engage in debate on the issues that matter. Actually engage in debate on what's occurring right now in America where people are getting harmed, vaccine mandates, tyranny, and open borders.
Madam Speaker, America is being crushed under the oppressive weight of the Democrats' greed for lust and power. They want totalitarian control over every aspect of American life, and they're ruling the people's house as if they were royalty. America is dissolving under our feet, and Democrats are worried about cartoons. In Afghanistan, Democrats led the betrayal of American honor and the abandonment of American citizens, granting control of the Afghan theater to Taliban terrorists and arming those jihadist terrorists with billions of dollars worth of American weapon systems. Our southern border control has disintegrated. American sovereignty is lost, and control of our own border completely ceded to criminal cartels. American parents are tracked like terrorists and persecuted by our own FBI because parents had the audacity to challenge government indoctrination of their children, assembling to redress their grievances at their own school boards in their own communities. American parents treated like criminals. Americans are dealing with unbelievable inflation. Families cannot afford groceries and fuel, and millions of Americans are being commanded by federal decree to choose between losing their job or kneeling to comply with an unconstitutional mandated medical procedure. And the oppressors intend to distract you with cartoons. Over the Speaker's podium or forever etch the words, "In God we trust." Scripture says, "A friend loveth at all times, and a brother is born for adversity." I stand with my brother Paul Gosar today because I stand against oppression and persecution. Madam Speaker, I yield.
We should not condone violence, but the reason it's so hard to sit here and listen to the condemnation from the other side, Madam Speaker, is because when there was violence against us, there was no condemnation. My wife and I went to a speech at the White House, and I've yet to hear anybody condemn the attempted violence on us. We were chased for 2 blocks. Now, Ron Paul was on TV when he was chased because he had cameras and civil and Secret Service around him. We didn't have that. And if it weren't for a guy popping up and opening a locked door, we would have, I told Kathy, look, I'm afraid they're going to get here before this door's opened. You run on down to Pennsylvania. There are cops down there. They'll be beating on me. You just get away. Nobody's condemned all that violence that I've ever heard. This is where we ought to be able to come together. Oh, and by the way, people that committed violence, did crimes in this building need to be punished. But for many of them, the most serious crime was obstructing an official session of Congress. Well, it turns out, I didn't know it was a crime in 2016, but most of the Democratic Party committed a felony right here in this chamber by obstructing an official session of Congress, not 6 hours like January 6th, but 26 hours. Let's come together and agree on what is really violent crime.
The gentleman from Florida is recognized for 2 minutes.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I oppose political violence in all forms, regardless of the politics of the target. I am no expert on Japanese anime, but I am told, and I do believe, that it is not real. What is real is the crisis on our border, the inflation crushing American families, unvetted Afghans in our country. And what is definitely real is the violence that burned our cities and harmed our businesses in the summer of 2020, often encouraged by Democrats in Congress. Anime is fiction to the point of the absurd. It's not really my thing, and it does glorify violence, but often to symbolize conflict, not realistic harm to another person. In the last session week we had, we reviewed Steve Bannon's podcast. Today, we're critiquing Paul Gosar's anime. Next week, we might be indicting the Wile E. Coyote for an explosive ordinance against the Roadrunner. If you don't like Paul Gosar's tweets, tweet back at him. We know there are plenty of folks in big tech who will amplify your message. But the gentlelady from Pennsylvania gave the game away. This isn't really about a tweet. It's about removing a powerful conservative, Paul Gosar, from the Oversight Committee. And it is about characterizing conservatives as threats to the country, dangerous, because despite the majority's references to the Biden infrastructure bill, they have received no bump from it. The American people, not really into the infrastructure bill, and so we're here reviewing mean tweets. All of us in Congress, I shouldn't say all of us, some of us have regretted things we've tweeted. I know I have. And when we say uncouth things, we should resolve that. Congressman Gosar removed the tweet, and I hope he regrets it, and I hope that the squad regrets tweets that raise funds for people.
The gentleman's time has expired.
An additional 30
The gentleman
seconds.
from Oklahoma yields the gentleman from Florida an additional minute. 30 seconds. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Madam Speaker. I would say I've regretted things I've tweeted. I hope that people who tweeted in support of violence in the summer of 2020 regret those tweets. I'm not sure if they do or not, but I would just suggest we have better things to do on the floor of the House of Representatives than be the hall monitors for Twitter. If we got 1,000 Americans in almost any district in America together and asked what was troubling them, I don't know that we would find 2 in any district that would put Paul Gosar on the list of things that matters to them more than the issues that they face at their kitchen table. I thank the gentleman's indulgence, and I yield back.
Recognized for 2 minutes.
Thank the gentlelady for yielding. Madam Speaker, as we speak, the FBI is treating parents as terrorists. The Department of Justice is getting ready to pay people $450,000 who illegally entered our country, and Democrats in Congress later this week plan to spend $2 trillion more, which we all know will only exacerbate the already 30-year high inflation. And what are they doing today? Censoring a member for a cartoon. You got to be kidding me. You have got to be kidding me. The attack, what scares me most about all this is the attack that we have seen on the First Amendment over the last year from the left, from the Democrat Party. They're attacking moms for standing up and speaking at a school board meeting. They're stopping Americans. There are still places in this country where a full congregation cannot meet on a Sunday morning, stopping Americans from exercising their First Amendment freedom of religious rights. Stopping forever, the Speaker of the House stopped Americans from petitioning their member of Congress to redress their grievances, wouldn't even let them in their own capital. And now here we go again, censoring speech. The most fundamental liberty we have is our right to speak, our right to talk, our right to communicate, and they're going after that today because they don't like freedom. You can see it. They don't like it. This is wrong. We know it's wrong. What they're doing to our colleague, Mr. Gosar, is wrong, and I hope they will have second thoughts and we will vote this down. I yield back.
Gentleman from Florida.
I rise today to address and reject the mischaracterization, accusations from many in this body that the cartoon from my office is dangerous or threatening. It was not, and I reject the false narrative categorically. I do not espouse violence towards anyone. I never have. It was not my purpose to make anyone upset. I voluntarily took the cartoon down, not because it was itself a threat, but because some thought it was. Out of compassion for those who generally felt offense, I self-censored. Last week, my staff posted a video depicting a policy battle regarding amnesty for tens of millions of illegal aliens. This is an enemy that speaks to young voters who are too often overlooked. Even Twitter the left's mouthpiece, did not remove the cartoon, noting it was in the public's interest for it to remain. The cartoon directly contributes to the understanding and the discussion of the real-life battle resulting from this administration's open border policies. This body is considering passage of Mr. Biden's reckless, socialist, Marxist $4.9 trillion spending bill that provides $100 billion for amnesty to tens of millions of illegal aliens already in this country. This is what the left doesn't want the American people to know. Our country is suffering from the plague of illegal immigration. I don't stop pointing this out, nor will I. Millions of illegal aliens, drugs, and human traffickers are being led in and moved around our country in the dead of night, all condoned by this administration. For this cartoon, some in Congress suggest I should be punished. I have said decisively, there is no threat in the cartoon other than the threat to immigration poses to our country. And no threat was intended by my staff or me. The American people deserve to have their voices heard in Congress. No matter how much the left tries to quiet me, I will continue to speak out against amnesty for illegal aliens, defend the rule of law, and advance the American First agenda. If I must join
Gentleman's recognized 30 seconds.
If I must join Alexander Hamilton, the first person attempted to be censored by this House, so be it. It is done. Madam Speaker, I yield back.